All right. What is going on, viewer? Mr. Wayne here. Right now it is 10:54 p.m. and it is Wednesday the 21st of May. And tonight, we have Master Key System, part 17. And this is a long program. This is a long program. Can you believe we're already on part 17? Now, we've been having an interesting week. We had our second contracts meeting today. And we've been going to our real estate meetings, and we can't wait to get started. It's one of those things where you want it to get done now. But we know we have to work with what we have and take the steps necessary to get there. And, I can't wait. To be honest, I can't wait to get out of Walmart. This greater opportunity. Me and my pops, we sat down the other day. We talked for about an hour and a half. We were talking about building, right? We were talking about society. We were talking about community. And essentially with real estate, we could build communities. We could build societies. We could build cities, housing. Like we're contributing to build society on just a higher level, not just being of service to society, but actually building it, right? And it's a very exciting idea, a very exciting thought. And yesterday we had a meeting. It was a careers night. And this man, his name is Drew, and he's going to be one of our coaches and coaching us in real estate, getting us started, getting us to where we want to go with the opportunity. And last night he was saying, he had a question for us, and he was saying his 150 something meetings that he's thrown, nobody has ever got the question right. But I did. And it's obvious, right? It's an obvious answer. But the question was, is it possible to live a life of abundance that is not a life worth living? And immediately I said, of course it is. And he got extremely excited. He gave me a high five. And yeah, it's totally possible to live a life of abundance in living a life simultaneously without meaning. Or that's not worth it, right? Living a life that's not worth it. And the reason is because we know a lot of people could do something specifically just for the money. And we know our society could get tied into doing nothing but making money while forgetting the importance of their health, the importance of their fitness, their physical fitness, their mental fitness, their spiritual fitness, the strength of their relationships, right? All these things tie into the ultimate happiness of the individual. And again, all that is based on a person's individual values. Right? You could live a life and do something just for the money that isn't in alignment with your values as a person. And because of that becomes a life that is not worth living for that specific individual, because they're doing something that's not in alignment with themselves as a person. And they're doing something specifically for the money, right? Which goes into that abundance. It's possible to live a life full of abundance that is a life that's not worth living specifically for that individual alone. And I got it right away, and I asked him if he was serious too, that Is that really something that people didn't get? Like, did he really go 150 meetings with nobody getting that question right? And he said yes, and that everyone he's asked believes happiness is tied specifically towards an abundance of money. Now, for granted, a lot of happiness does come from having a lot of money because it's resources, all right? It's resources, it's choices. It gives you the opportunity, the space, and the time to do something great with your life. And it gives you more control over your time, over your attention. It gives you control over the foods you eat. It gives you more control over these things, because we know being healthier is more expensive. It costs more to be healthy. It costs more to have a nicer car. It costs more to have, just greater things. It costs more to live a life of greater and higher quality as compared to living a life that's not. And, it made me feel very good, because a place like this, these people are all about growth. These people are all about doing something for the betterment of the community, of society. These people are about helping others. And, it made me feel very good, because they were actually, supporting me. They were on my side. They were for me, right? As compared to where I'm at Walmart, the better I do, the better I get, the more negativity I get from others. They don't want to see you do better. They don't want you to live better, because they're not living better. Just the fact that you have goals in a place like that, it separates you, and it categorizes you as something different. It's hard to explain. Which I know, you watching this, I'm sure you understand, what it's like to be in an environment that's not exactly supportive of where it is that you're going or who you are as a person. No, I'm not saying the people I'm around at work are bad people. But what I am saying is that they're satisfied with what they have. And if they're not satisfied, they're not doing anything to get to a better place, to do better, to be better, to manifest something better for themselves. And, especially when you're outspoken like I am, and you stand for your side of things, people don't like that. A lot of people don't like that. The superficiality that's found around that place. Somebody can make a statement that a person doesn't really like, but yet that person will act like they like it anyway, so they're liked by the other person. That's the kind of stuff that you would see there, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not like that. And I know, because I'm not like that, it can have a tendency to create passive aggression. And it's ridiculous. It's absurd. But we are moving forward. We're moving forward. That's all I could say. And with this new opportunity, I don't even, what was I thinking trying to move forward with Walmart? Now, it's something I had. I wanted to make the best and the most of what I currently had in my hands. But now that I have a better opportunity in my hands, I just want to get out of there as soon as possible and already start diving in and being a part of this more. But we're just in that transition period. We're in that transition phase, and we just got to get through it, and we will, because we'll look back on these days we're currently in now, And, we're going to say, we got through it, and we didn't give up, we kept going. Now we're on part 17. Let's see what Mr. Hanno has for us in this part. So, introduction, part 17. The kind of deity which man consciously or unconsciously worships indicates the intellectual status of the worshipper. Ask the Indian of God, and he will describe to you a powerful chieftain of a glorious tribe. Ask the pagan of God, and he will tell you of a god of fire, a god of water, a god of this, of that, and the other. Ask the Israelite of God, and he will tell you of the God of Moses, who conceived it expedient to rule by coercive measures, hence the 10 Commandments, or of Joshua, who led the Israelites into battle, confiscated property, murdered the prisoners, and laid waste to cities. Excuse me, sorry. So he's telling us right off the bat, the God that we as men, women, humans, the gods that we worship are reflections of us. They're dependent upon our understanding of who and what God is. The so-called heathen made graven images of their gods, whom they were accustomed to worship, but among the most intelligent, at least, these images were but the visible fulcrums with which they were enabled to mentally concentrate on the qualities which they desired to externalize in their lives. We of the 21st century worship a God of love in theory, but in practice we make for ourselves graven images of wealth, power, fashion, custom, and conventionality. We fall down before them and worship them. We concentrate on them, and they are thereby externalized in our lives. Well, of course they would be, because we know if we're thinking about it, we will eventually begin to act upon it, and be it, and become it. And we would represent that image in our character and conduct in accordance to how we see ourselves to be in the thoughts that we're thinking. For example, I love fashion. I love high quality clothing. Right? I want wealth. I want power. And the reason I want it is so I can do so much more with it. It'll allow me to further extend this society. It would allow me to, as we're talking about with real estate and building societies, building housing, building communities, right? Wealth and power gives us the ability to do these things. The student who masters the contents of Part 17 will not mistake the symbols for the reality. He will be interested in causes rather than effects. He will concentrate on the realities of life and will then not be disappointed in the results. So what he's telling us at the end of the introduction is that focus, as he's been telling us through this entire part, or through this entire program so far, focus on the cause of things and the effects will follow, right? Focus on the cause of wealth. The cause of wealth is service, being of service to your people, to your society, right? Providing something of value to the marketplace. That's the cause of wealth. And of course, that in turn is a direct manifestation of wealth consciousness, right? Thinking about wealth, thinking about money, which there is absolutely nothing wrong with, right? It's resources. We have to be resourceful. Again, money will help you buy a higher quality life. It'll give you the ability to make higher choices. And since this whole movement, this whole society is dependent upon higher thought, being a higher individual, manifesting a higher character. In order to do that, you have to have wealth, you have to have health, you have to have spiritual health, you have to have all these things in alignment and working towards it on a daily basis. Remember, because all these things are just natural aspects of our reality. They're natural aspects of life. And we have to grow and develop in each one of those areas simultaneously in order to become a full, complete human being. Because at the center of all this is consciousness. It's God. It's unity with the infinite mind. And that unity will bring about every single manifestation, physical manifestation we could think of. As long as we have the courage, the will, the vision to act upon it, and the strength to keep going. So that's the end of the introduction. Let's get started with part 17. So, part 17. We are told that man has dominion over all things. This dominion is established through mind. Thought is the activity which controls every principle beneath it. The highest principle, by reason of its superior essence and qualities, necessarily determines the circumstances, aspects, and relation of everything with which it comes in contact. The vibrations of mental forces are the finest, and consequently the most powerful in existence. To those who perceive the nature and transcendency of mental force, all physical power sinks into insignificance. Now, there's a lot of debate too between mental force and emotional force, because right here Mr. Hanel is telling us mental force, we can agree that it is the finest of all forces because it's easy for us to change our mind. It's easier for us to change our thought. And we know, even today, even through science, that the vibration and energy of thought passes through all material things because matter is not truly solid, right? It's made out of a conglomeration of atoms, and those atoms are vibrating at their core. That means we're all vibrating at our core. This box that I'm in is vibrating at its core. This tablet I'm recording on is vibrating at its core. Everything is in vibration. And mental thought, mental force, has the power to pass through these vibrations. Now, example of that, we know our phones, for example. You have a phone with, let's say, Verizon. You're connected with Verizon. Now, you don't need to be out in the open. You could be legitimately inside of a building. You're inside of a building, inside of a box, inside of anything and everything. There's walls upon walls upon walls, but yet your phone is still receiving a signal from the satellite connected to your phone server. The reason it's able to continue to receive the signal is because even the vibration, the energy, the frequency the phone receives from the satellite passes through the wall. The vibration of thought is even finer than the vibration coming from the satellite. And thought vibrates through all, passes through all matter. So connecting that with emotional force, because we know Mr. Hanel tells us that, hey, we could think a thought, but unless we get emotional about it, unless it truly means something to us on a deeper emotional level, we're not going to act upon it. Right? You could have somebody in a situation and they could lose control over their thinking. They get in a situation that really stirs up their emotions, and their emotions begin to control and dictate their thinking. And they begin to think from the emotion, because the emotion will overpower the logic. So that shows that even emotional force must be stronger than this mental force. Because like he says, in order to really become something, to change our behavior, to do something else, to conscientiously go in mind, visualize, and change our behavior by seeing ourselves as the person we wish to be. We have to feel as if we are already that. Feel its reality mentally and emotionally. You have to feel it spiritually. Again, you enter into the spirit of the thing. You enter into the consciousness of the thing. And when you enter into that spirit and you live there in your vision, your visualization, you will then be programming your subconscious mind. You'll be creating a new behavior pattern through the mind alone. But again, all of that, you need to apply emotion to the vision of which you have. So it's really hard to say which one is stronger. Is it really going to be this mental force, even if it's the finest of all forces? Or is it the emotional force? Because we know the emotional force needs to be blended with the mental force anyway, in order to give it life. So he says the vibrations of the mental force are the finest and consequently the most powerful in existence. To those who perceive the nature and transcendency of mental force, all physical power sinks into insignificance. We are accustomed to look upon the universe with the lens of 5 senses, and from these experiences our anthropomorphic conceptions originate, but true conceptions are only secured by spiritual insight. This insight requires a quickening of the vibrations of the mind and is only secured when the mind is continuously concentrated in a given direction. So what he told us right there, just like he opened this entire part, right? The kind of deity that a man worships is dependent upon where he is intellectually. And he says down here that to really gain insight of the truth, to really understand the higher qualities and the higher realities of our lives, looking beyond anything that we could perceive with the 5 physical senses, we have to gain spiritual insight. As the Bible tells us, we worship the living God, the Father of all things, and we worship him in spirit. We worship him in from the higher aspect of who we are as an individual. As it has been said, when a man knows himself, he will know God. Because being a direct reflection of God and being made inside and out of God, remember, we're not separate from him. But when you understand these different levels of who you are as a human, and when you understand your central point of existence as the I am, as consciousness alone, then you will see its connection. You will see the unity of your consciousness with the consciousness of the universal mind, which is beyond the realm of matter. And again, everything I said there, those of us that are spiritually awakened enough to see that will understand it. And he continues again, like I'm saying, as he says this insight, for you to understand this, you have to raise your mental vibration. You have to raise the thought of your mind. And this is only secured when the mind is continuously concentrated in a given direction, in a higher direction, in a spiritual direction. Continuous concentration means an even, unbroken flow of thought and is the result of a patient, persistent, persevering, and well-regulated system. We, you and me, essentially are the system. We're the well-regulated system. Because remember how we said in a prior part, this power, this universal flow of energy and mind and intelligence flows through a mechanism. It manifests itself in certain ways depending on the mechanism that it is attached to. Remember the example he gave us in one of the prior lessons when it came to electricity. We know electricity has always existed. Electricity has always been there. And until somebody learned about it and utilized it and created the proper mechanisms to use it, we didn't know. Until we recognized it, it didn't exist to us, even though it was there. Until we built something that was able to be empowered by the electricity, the things that we built wouldn't even matter if we didn't know how to attach the electricity to it. Again, like the example I use, right? You have your fan and you have your heater. The fan and the heater are powered by the exact same power, which is the electricity. The electricity is the source, but the way that electricity is used, the way that electricity is manifested, is dependent upon the mechanism that it's attached to. If it's attached to the heater, then the heater will use the electricity to create heat. If it's attached to the fan will use the electricity to just blow air, to create a circular flow of air. All right, see, it's the exact same with us, right? We are the temple of the living God. We are God manifested in form. We are like the heater is with the electricity. We are the mechanism as the universal mind flows through us. And we have to train and create our system. We have to create the pattern, our mental pattern, which will in turn dictate how the universal power, the universal mind is going to flow through us, the power of the infinite. It says, great discoveries are the result of long continued investigation. The science of mathematics requires years of concentrated effort to master it, and the greatest science, that of the mind, is revealed only through concentrated effort, which is what the power of meditation comes into play. Because remember, you're going into the silence, you're securing control over your body, you're securing control over your thinking, you're focusing on pure awareness, you're focusing on your central point of existence. And that's concentrated. You're concentrating the mind upon itself, so to speak. In this creative power, this creative mind, once you grasp and build that central point of control mentally, you will then be able to dictate how mental force, how the mind, the creative power of the universe, is going to manifest through you. And that in turn is going to determine the life you live, how you're going to manifest your very reality. It all starts in here with our focus, our visualizations. Again, as Proverbs tell us, that the man without the vision shall perish. And the vision leads back to our mind, our consciousness. Concentration is much misunderstood. There seems to be an idea of effort or activity associated with it, when just the contrary is necessary. Excuse me. The greatness of an actor lies in the fact that he forgets himself in the portrayal of his character. Becoming so identified with it that the audience is swayed by the realism of the performance. This will give you a good idea of true concentration. You should be so interested in your thought, so engrossed in your subject, as to be conscious of nothing else. Such concentration leads to intuitive perception and immediate insight into the nature of the object concentrated upon. So he's telling us right there that pure concentration, sheer concentration, is found not in the effort of trying to concentrate, but being so engrossed in your consciousness, so engrossed in your central point of awareness, that you lose awareness of the body, right? You lose awareness of where you are externally, because you enter into the spirit of the thing. You're living in the vision of which you are creating mentally, and you're so engrossed in it that everything else almost disappears. It's almost like it no longer exists, because the only thing that exists is the life you are living in imagination. Oh, this sounds like a trip, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what he's telling us, because it's mental science. Remember, this whole program goes to the cause of things. It goes to what the power which causes things to be in our lives, which is centered in mind and consciousness. It has absolutely nothing to do with what's outside of us. It has everything to do with what's happening inside. As within, so without. Remember, in order to have health, you have to develop the health consciousness, which is thinking from the viewpoint of health. You're thinking from health itself. And that in turn is going to change your actions, and you're going to be making healthier choices, right? You're starting from within. You're starting from your thinking. You're starting from your mind, your consciousness. All knowledge is the result of concentration of this kind. It is thus that the secrets of heaven and earth have been wrested. It is thus that the mind becomes a magnet, and the desire to know draws the knowledge, irresistibly attracts it, makes it your own. So to attract the thing you want, to make the thing you want your own, you have to become the magnet. You have to enter into the spirit of the thing first, and its manifestation will follow. How can it be otherwise if we know the spiritual, energetic power which permeates all space and is the foundation of all matter, and is the foundation of our very existence, and is the foundation of our inner life? How is that any different, right? Having the vision, thinking the thoughts, feeling the emotions, living that first internally, and its manifestation will follow after. How is that any weirder, different than how the universal spiritual power of everything, God, and how He created all things in material form? It started first as the spirit, and it's manifested in individual forms from this spiritual power. Same thing with you. Manifesting the life that you want first depends upon you manifesting it first spiritually, and that will start within. Desire is largely subconscious. Conscious desire rarely realizes its object when the latter is out of immediate reach. Subconscious desire arouses the latent faculties of the mind, and difficult problems seem to solve themselves. The subconscious mind may be aroused and brought into action in any direction, and made to serve us for any purpose by concentration. The practice of concentration requires a control of the physical, mental, and physical being. Physical, mental, and physical being. I believe one of those is supposed to be spiritual. All modes of consciousness, whether physical, mental, or spiritual, must be under control. Spiritual truth is therefore the controlling factor. It is this which will enable you to grow out of limited attainment and reach a point where you will be able to translate modes of thought into character and consciousness, which also makes total sense because we know that if we are in an environment that is not suitable to our happiness, that's not suitable to our liking, we have to change it. We have to change it. And we know that in order to make that change, we have to think different. We have to think above the circumstances that we currently find ourselves in, so we could take higher action. We could take the actions necessary in order to move towards the things that we want, move towards creating the environment which we desire to create. Right? Saying right here, spiritual truth. Spiritual truth is the controlling factor. And it's spiritual. It all leads back to our spiritual conditioning. And our spiritual conditioning will enable us to grow out of limited attainment, out of an environment that we feel limitations in, disassociations from. Because I gotta tell you, the further I get along in doing this, and the more I continue to invest my thinking into real estate, I could feel my environment changing because I'm changing. My thought has changed. And we've already made plenty of examples of how this works. Concentration does not mean mere thinking of thoughts, but the transmutation of these thoughts into practical values. So he's saying the real value in concentration is applying your ability to think, to enter into the spirit of the thing, into something that is practical, something that is real, something that is not theoretical, but something that can actually be used, right? Be practiced. Remember, any truth has to be practical in its application in order for it to really have a foundation, in order for it to really have value. Because if it's something that can't be practiced, then it's just a theory. If you could practice it, practicing it shows its applicability with us as humans. And that applicability shows its reality in regards to us. And what we could use, what we could take advantage of, what we could use to leverage to creating a better life, a higher life for ourselves. The average person has no conception of the meaning of concentration. There is always the cry to have, but never the cry to be. As we've already said multiple times, you have to be it first, and its manifestation will follow. And that being it involves pure concentration, pure spiritual oneness with the thought, with the idea, with the image, with the vision, entering into the spirit of the vision which you are harboring. He says they fail to understand that they cannot have one without the other, and they must first find the kingdom before they can have the things added. Momentary enthusiasm is of no value. It is only with unbounded self-confidence that the goal is reached. And again, that contributes to the power of Christ. Because as Paul told us about Christ is the fullness of the Godhead bodily. Christ is the image of God in man. Christ is the man understanding the wisdom of God and applying that wisdom in his own life. Applying the wisdom of God in your own life and embodying that wisdom spiritually. You are then entering into the Spirit of God. And as Christ told us himself, that the kingdom of heaven is within us. It is inside. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all these things shall be established unto thee. Enter into the spirit of something first, and then its manifestation will follow. believe it was even Matthew said, he who has, more shall be given. But he who hath not, even that which he has shall be taken away from him. Meaning, he who has, he who is it, he who has become it, he who enters into the spirit of the thing, has it in spirit, it will be given unto him. Its physical manifestation will follow. But he that hath not, he who does not have the spirit of it, he that is not conditioned for it, even the things he has shall be taken from him, because he's not who he needs to be spiritually. Momentary enthusiasm is of no value. It is only with unbounded self-confidence that the goal is reached. The mind may place the ideal a little too high and fall short of the mark. It may attempt to soar on untrained wings, and instead of flying, fall to the earth. But that is no reason for not making another attempt. Weakness is the only barrier to mental attainment. Attribute your weakness to physical limitations or mental uncertainties and try again. Ease and perfection are gained by repetition. The astronomer centers his mind on the stars and they give forth their secrets. The geologist centers his mind on the construction of the earth, and we have geology. So with all things. Men center their minds on the problems of life, and the result is apparent in the vast and complex social order of the day. Now, viewer, take a time. I know we were talking about this even in the last part. Reflect on a moment on something that you were concentrating upon so deeply, or something you were thinking about with intent. And you just started seeing things, you started meeting people and running into things that were contributing to that thought of which you had. And think of a time to where you were focused on something for so long, but then you started focusing on something else. Then you notice this thing that you were focusing on prior, before shifting your focus to this other thing. Notice how these things, it begins to slowly fall apart. It slowly begins to dissipate in your manifestation, the things that you're manifesting, or the life. Like you just begin to become surrounded by these other things that are associated with your thinking. Right? That is what he's saying right here. He's talking about concentrating, centering your mind upon a specific idea, upon a specific goal, and your life will just reflect that. You'll run into things. You'll find books. You'll find mentors. You'll run into a video, audio, whatever it is. You'll run into something associated with getting you further along to the manifestation of this idea. All mental discovery and attainment are the result of desire plus concentration. Desire is the strongest mode of action. The more persistent the desire, the more authoritative the revelation. Desire added to concentration will wrench any secret from nature. Again, as we were talking about with the beginning of this part, desire, he's bringing it up again. Desire is necessary. So concentration is the power of the will. Concentration is connected to the mental force of the conscious mind. Well, desire stems from and has its center in the subconscious mind, the emotional mind. So adding desire to concentration is the power to wrench any secret from nature, is the power in the process to attract the things necessary to you, to build that image, to build that vision, to build that goal which you have in mind, of which you see for yourself. That's how it works. It's that simple. It's simple, but it's not easy because, again, you have to change your own behavioral patterns, and you have to develop the courage. You have to develop the will. You have to develop the desire. You have to develop I don't care what anyone else says, right? You have to not care because everyone has their own opinion. Everybody's going to say something about something, but it's not their opinion on what you believe and what you think or what you know doesn't matter, right? Because the moment you begin to think about what they're thinking about you, again, that's dogma. You then get trapped mentally in their thought of you, and you will manifest their idea about you in your life. You don't want that. You don't want to live your life dependent upon somebody else's thought of you. If you did that, you wouldn't be free. You wouldn't be mentally free, right? You want to gain mental freedom. And that mental freedom involves spiritual power, spiritual conditioning, the ability to not let what the world says or dictates interfere with your thinking and your goals, the things you want to do in your life. In realizing great thoughts and experiencing great emotions that correspond with great thoughts, the mind is in a state where it appreciates the value of higher things. The intensity of one moment's earnest concentration and the intense longing to become and to attain may take you further than years of slow, normal, enforced effort. It will unfasten the prison bars of unbelief, weakness, impotence, and self-belittlement, and you will come into a realization of the joy of overcoming. So what he's saying there, your goal, your vision, that thing which you have in mind may take years to develop because you have to grow into that person. And growing into that person takes a very, very long time because you have to experience the things necessary for its achievement. Wow. Yeah, because you have to continue to grow and expand in consciousness. And that growth and expansion in your consciousness is also leveraged by your personal life experiences. Because they say personal experience is the greatest of all teachers. And it's also the hardest and most bitterest of all experiences. Right? If we can learn from somebody else and gain the insight of what not to do, obviously we will save ourselves the hardship and trouble of experiencing that situation personally. But we know, even if we could see a situation or an experience from the outside, and we gain some insight, hey, we don't want to have that experience, to stay away from something like that. And it gives you a key of how you need to begin to think about things. You're going to have those moments where you have to have the experience yourself in order to really absorb the wisdom of the situation and for you to realize the pain involved with it and the necessity of disciplining your mind towards another direction. There are parts of life that you have to have those experiences. And those experiences are necessary for getting you to where you want to go. The spirit of initiative and originality is developed through persistence and continuity of mental effort. Business teaches the value of concentration and encourages decision of character. It develops practical insight and quickness of conclusion. The mental element in every commercial pursuit is dominant as the controlling factor, and desire is the predominating force. All commercial relations are the externalization of desire. Now, I really like that. And that shows, again, the power of business and the value of what it really is. Because we work 8+ hours out of the day for us that work full time and for us that work overtime, right? Our work is not just dependent upon us making money. Our work is also our physical fitness. Our work is also the books that we read. Our work is also the personal work, the work that we put into relationships. All this involves work. But he's saying business because we engage in business at least 8 hours out of our day. And business is all about providing the best service, bringing the best value to the company, to your people, to your team, to your society, your customers. Business revolves around higher quality in all of those areas, which in turn creates the success of the business. And we know that leadership positions, we know that business in general, we know that mind is the controlling factor of all of our business pursuits. And we have to have insight. We have to have temperance. We have to have self-control. Now, I've learned a lot of this in the necessity of these things through working at Walmart, because we do deal with a lot of customers that will have a tendency to push your buttons, and you can't get frustrated in regards to the customer, or you can't have colleagues that I'm currently dealing with now. Oh, it's so how ironic, huh, that we're reading upon what we're currently experiencing now, and not letting our colleagues, get under our nerves or their attitude towards us, and, not taking their crap. Oh, man. The value of working with others, or the challenges of working with others. But again, going back to the value of business. Business involves all of these things in regards to creating the best customer service and bringing the highest quality service to your society. In all commercial relationships, I can't say it any better than he does right here. All commercial relations are the externalization of desire, of mind, of the spirit of the individual. And they don't have the master key, or we have the master key. They don't understand the value of a great mental attitude and a higher mental attitude. I do. And obviously that alone is going to separate us from them. Many of the sturdy and substantial virtues are developed in commercial employment. The mind is steadied and directed. It becomes efficient. Yes, because we have to maintain focus. We have to push through. We have to be able to discipline our mind to stay focused on the task at hand, even when we don't want to. Because it's not about us. Remember, any business you're in, it's about other people for 8 hours straight or more of your life, of your mind. You have to be thinking about the customer, not about yourself. Even if that means missing breaks, even if that means arguing with coworkers, not getting along with them, even if that means going late on your lunch. It's all about the customer and making sure each department is efficiently run so the customer has the highest quality service. Right? That's the mind being steadied and directed. That is the mind becoming efficient. That is you, viewer, becoming more efficient in your character, in your ability to provide service to your society, which in turn, as we know, how you do anything is how you do everything. That in turn is going to seep into these other areas of your life. When you engage in your fitness, when you engage in your reading, when you engage in your relationships, the efficiency of being involved in those things will be influenced from your involvement in business and vice versa as well. How you handle these personal things in your life is going to seep into how you manage and handle yourself in business. The principal necessity is the strengthening of the mind so that it rises superior to the distractions and wayward impulses of instinctive life, and thus successfully overcomes in the conflict between the higher and lower self. Which is exactly what I'm experiencing and dealing with personally right now. Between the higher and lower self. Between maintaining maintaining a higher mental attitude and not letting the lower self of us, so to speak, fall down to the level of those around me, because they don't work out, they don't train, they don't meditate, they don't read. They could care less about the customer, right? They definitely don't care about them as much as I do. So obviously that shows where I am at in my mental attitude as compared to them. And obviously that causes a lot of friction, because I don't take their crap. My new lead, do you know what he told me? He told me I do the work of 3 people. Now that put a lot into perspective, because I told him I know. But even the new lead is seeing how much we actually do as compared to other people, not only just in all the departments, but even among now that he's a part of our team, amongst our immediate co-workers. All of us are dynamos, but the dynamo of itself is nothing. Again, as we were talking about it was over here somewhere. Our system, right? The well-regulated system and the dynamo being the mechanism of attachment, right? The universal mind is attached to us, and we are attached to it. And the image of the infinite mind in its manifestation through us is through our personal consciousness. What he's saying right here, that we're dynamos, right? We are mechanisms of which this infinite energy is manifesting itself through. But the dynamo of itself is nothing. The mind must work the dynamo. So he's saying the dynamo being the mind, being the body, right? In human consciousness, the spirit, it works the dynamo, it works the body. Then it is useful and its energy can be definitely concentrated. The mind is an engine whose power is undreamed. Thought is an omni-working power. It is the ruler and creator of all form, and all events occurring in form. Physical energy is nothing in comparison with the omnipotence of thought, because thought enables man to harness all other natural power. And he opened this entire program with the power of thought and its creative power. Because like he said, we already have the power, but in order to truly access it, in order to truly get a handle on it, we have to grasp it in our thinking. We have to understand it in order to really use it. And that shows the creative power of thought itself. Because unless we're conscious of the power, we have no idea how we're using it and that we're using it. We have no idea we even have it. But once we become conscious of it, which is centered in consciousness itself and in the mind, we then take hold, we grasp it, we grab onto the power, and we begin to use it conscientiously and deliberately to create the things in our lives. As he's saying, the mind is the engine. The mind is the engine of the body. And its power is undrained. Its power can essentially be used in any way, shape, or form. And that form is dependent upon your ability to imagine. Bob Proctor actually has said that poverty of imagination and lack of attention is what keeps most people poor. Poverty of imagination, your inability to create the image, your inability to see it in its fullness in imagination, and your lack of attention, your lack of concentration, which is everything that we're reading right here. Right? Desire melded with concentration is the secret of wrenching any secret from nature. It's the process of creating anything that we want. Thought enables us to harness all other natural power. Again, as we spoke upon electricity, electricity already exists. It is something that has always existed. But until we understood electricity, until we recognized electricity and created something that allowed us to harness the electricity, we were not able to use it. It's the exact same thing here. You have to understand the mind. You have to become aware of it. You have to take hold of what the mind is capable of doing. And you have to act upon it. You have to apply it. Remember, you are the mechanism. You yourself are the mechanism of how this infinite mental force is going to work in your life. Vibration is the action of thought. It is vibration which reaches out and attracts the material necessary to construct and build. There is nothing mysterious concerning the power of thought. Concentration simply implies that consciousness can be focalized to the point where it becomes identified with the object of its attention. Remember, that identification again can be another word for entering into the spirit of the thing. You become identified with it. You become one with it. You become one. You focus your mind so intently and so with such intense concentration. You're identifying with the thought. You are becoming one with the thought, with the vision. In that oneness with the idea that you have is what brings it into vibration, brings you into vibration. And you begin to vibrate on that level, on that energy of the image of which you are harboring. And that in turn reaches out and attracts the material necessary to construct and build. Now think of a time where you thought of a car. You were thinking about a car, and all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere. Right? You attracted that car in your life. You vibrated with it. You vibrated it into your existence. Because all matter, again, is vibrating at its core. Now, the power of thought is that we can legitimately think and form any mental picture necessary. And because we have the power to mold the mind into any mental picture necessary, we could then vibrate the mind on any. The only limitation of our vibration is, again, as Proctor said, lack of imagination. As he told us in the beginning, right, mental forces are the finest. And because they're the finest, consequently, they're the most powerful in existence. So in regards to explaining it in this way, we can see what Mr. Hanel means by it being the most powerful of all forces. Because it can be focalized into any vibration necessary. While desire is the life-giving force to it, right? And desire, I don't know how we can necessarily mold desire into a specific form. Desire just is what it is. It's almost like a thermostat. And we could raise or lower our desire for something. But desire just is what it is. It's a creative emotion. But thought, mind, mental force, we can mold into any shape or form necessary to determine what it is that we want to create. That's interesting. As food absorbed is the essence of the body, so the mind absorbs the object of its attention, gives it life and being. Again, as we said earlier, with the examples you had in your life, how you were so focused on one thing, and then whatever you were focused on just began to surround you, became surrounded by things in your life conducive to the creation of that thing you were focused on. And when you shifted your focus towards something else, all of this you had over here was no longer being fed, because you were now feeding this other thing. And this other thing, you now were surrounded by people, things, and material conducive to the creative of this, to creating and manifesting this new thing that you were focused on, because you're giving it mind, you're giving it your attention. And since mind and attention stems from consciousness itself, and consciousness being the creative substance of the universe, your mind is absorbing the object of your attention, and that absorption is giving it life and energy and power. It's very interesting, because we know we are what we eat, or we become that which we eat. We also become that which we focus on. If you concentrate on some matter of importance, the intuitive power will be set in operation, and help will come in the nature of information, which will lead to success. This is everything that we just said. Help will come in the nature of information, which will lead to success. But of course, Mr. Handel simplifies it a lot more than I did. We're going to have to adopt that. The nature of information. Intuition arrives at conclusions without the aid of experience or memory. Intuition often solves problems that are beyond the grasp of the reasoning power. Intuition often comes with a suddenness that is startling. It reveals the truth for which we are searching so directly that it seems to come from a higher power. Intuition can be cultivated and developed. Excuse me. Sorry. Those hiccups, man, I get them a lot while I'm reading aloud, for whatever reason. Intuition can be cultivated and developed. In order to do this, it must be recognized and appreciated. So he's telling us, just like understanding and stepping into our universal creative power as humans, we have to recognize it. Saying the exact same with the power of intuition. We have to recognize that we have intuition, and we have to be grateful for it. We have to appreciate that we have it. If the intuitive visitor is given a royal welcome when he comes, he will come again. The more cordial the welcome, the more frequent his visits will become. But if he is ignored or neglected, he will make his visits few and far between. So he's telling us that if we do not appreciate our intuition when our intuition gives us answers, the intuitive faculty will not be working as much as it could be, as if it was welcomed with gratitude. which makes a lot of sense because we know information not used passes from the realm of mind, passes out of consciousness. We can learn something, but if we're not acting upon that which we are learning or practicing it, we're just going to forget it, right? Because we are not being appreciative of it. We're not welcoming it in our lives. That same principle applies to intuition. Intuition usually comes in the silence. Great minds seek solitude frequently. It is here that all the larger problems of life are worked out. For this reason, every businessman who can afford it has a private office where he will not be disturbed. If you cannot afford a private office, you can at least find somewhere you can be alone a few minutes each day to train the thought along lines which will enable you to develop the invincible power which is necessary to achieve. Yes, which is exactly everything that this program is. Everything this program is just became summed up in that one sentence. Training the thought along the lines which will enable you to develop that invincible power which is necessary to achieve. And that training the thought along these specific lines has to be done in the silence. You know, even Jesus, he fled to the mountains so he can get away from everybody. He got away from his disciples. He got away from his apostles. He got away from the people he was performing miracles for. Why? So he could be in the silence. So he could continue to develop and stay connected to the kingdom of heaven, the mind, the power, the power of the universal mind, of which we are all manifestations and connections to. Remember, I and the Father are one. You and the Father are one. Remember that fundamentally the subconscious is omnipotent. There is no limit to the things that can be done when it is given the power to act. Now again, the subconscious mind is the mind inside of us. It is the Father within us. It's the universal intelligence operating through us. Again, we don't have to make our heart beat. We don't have to make our hair grow. We don't have to make our nails grow. We don't have to digest our food. We don't have to renew the dead cells of the trillions of cells of which we are composed. We don't have to do any of that. We don't have to feed ourselves. We don't have to break down the nutrients. We don't have to break down protein into amino acids and send those amino acids through the bloodstream and send it to each individual cell that is in need of it. The body does that by itself because there is an intelligence working within us. There is an intelligence, the intelligence of the infinite mind operating through us. And that mind we know is the subconscious mind. And he's saying the subconscious is omnipotent because it is the force of nature, the force and power of God within. It has no limitations of what it can achieve. The only limitations that are placed upon what it's going to do for us is the limitation we have in our mind, the limitation of our ability to visualize, the limitation of our ability to stay focused and concentrated, the limitation of our lack. The power of the infinite mind to create for us, of which we are already a part of, its limitations are going to be dependent upon how well we develop ourselves in consciousness. It just all leads back to how much we're going to choose to grow mentally. And again, that's all what New Thought is. New Thought is all about growing in consciousness, becoming more and more in here. Because the more you grow and develop mentally, the more you'll be able to achieve and develop externally. There is no limit to the things that can be done when it is given the power to act. Your degree of success is determined by the nature of your desire. If the nature of your desire is in harmony with natural law or the universal mind, it will gradually emancipate the mind and give you invincible courage. Now again, he's saying your desire, when it is in alignment with natural law or the universal mind, the mind of God, the wisdom and intelligence of the universe, then that wisdom, that intelligence will emancipate our mind. It will be absorbed in our mind and give you invincible courage. Now this again explains what we were saying earlier when it came to embodying the wisdom of God, because embodying the wisdom of God is embodying the Spirit of God, and you will begin to manifest the qualities of God in the flesh, in your character, in your conduct. You will become more like God, which is what Christ's main mission was, to bring us all into unity and to allow all of us to manifest the power and attributes of God in the flesh, which in turn will establish the kingdom of heaven on earth. That establishment is done through everybody establishing the kingdom and embodying the Spirit of Christ. Every obstacle conquered, every victory gained will give you more faith in your power, and you will have greater ability to win. Your strength is determined by your mental attitude. If this attitude is one of success and is permanently held within unswerving purpose, you will attract to you from the invisible domain the things you silently demand. Again, you enter into the vibration, and that vibration is attaching to any material form in our universe, in our lives, and we will be attracted to it, and they will be attracted to us. Today we know it as the law of electromagnetic energy. It's one of the fundamental forces of nature that we have discovered through quantum physics. By keeping the thought in mind, it will gradually take tangible form. A definite purpose sets causes in motion which go out in the invisible world and find the material necessary to serve your purpose. You may be pursuing the symbols of power instead of power itself. You may be pursuing fame instead of honor, riches instead of wealth, position instead of servitude. In either event, you will find that they turn to ashes just as you overtake them. Premature wealth or position cannot be retained because it has not been earned. We get only what we give, and those who try to get without giving always find that the law of compensation is relentlessly bringing about an exact equilibrium. So he's saying because of compensation and the law of attraction, there is no way for us to get what we first do not give. That we have to give it first in order to truly get it. Because we may stumble upon it, we may come across it, we may somehow come into possession of something we may not be ready for. But because we're not ready for it, we will not hold on to it. We will lose it. Because it was given prematurely. As he's saying, we have to earn that which we truly merit. The race has usually been for money and other symbols of power and other mere symbols of power, but with an understanding of the true source of power, we can afford to ignore the symbols. As he's saying, enter into the spirit of the thing, and the manifestation of that thing will follow. Now, if you look at Think and Grow Rich, And in chapter 2, when Napoleon Hill gives us the 6 steps to developing the money consciousness, the money consciousness is all about reprogramming the mind by writing out your affirmation statement, by writing it on a card, getting crystal clear about what it is that you want, crystal clear about the exact amount that you want, and thinking upon it. Right? It's all about entering into the spirit of the thing first. And then once you enter into that spirit, its manifestation will then follow suit. As Mr. Hanel is telling us, we can afford to ignore the symbols, because we will then in turn go directly to the cause of those things, which is ourselves. It's our attitude. It's our thinking. The man with a large bank account finds it unnecessary to load his pockets down with gold. So with the man who has found the true source of power. He is no longer interested in its shams or pretensions. Thought ordinarily leads outwardly in evolutionary directions, but it can be turned within where it will take hold of the basic principles of things, the heart of things, the spirit of things. When you get to the heart of things, it is comparatively easy to understand and command them. This is because the spirit of a thing is the thing itself, the vital part of it, the real substance. When he's saying the vital part, it is the main living portion of a thing. It is the main thing. It is the core of a thing. The form is simply the outward manifestation of the spiritual activity within. For your exercise this week, concentrate as nearly as possible in accordance with the method outlined in the lesson. Let there be no conscious effort or activity associated with your purpose. Relax completely. Avoid any thought of anxiety as to results. Remember that power comes through repose. Repose is silence. It comes through silence. Let the thought dwell upon your object until it is completely identified. Until it is completely identified with it. Until you are conscious of nothing else. As we were stating before, you become so engrossed in the vision of which you have. You become so engrossed in the ideal of which you are trying to manifest. You become so engrossed into the goal of which you see yourself working towards, of the image of the life which you desire to live. You become so engrossed in it. You legitimately enter into the spirit. You feel as if you are already there. And you get so involved in that feeling that you lose consciousness of everything else. That's the level of concentration he is talking about. If you wish to eliminate fear, concentrate on courage. If you wish to eliminate lack, concentrate on abundance. If you wish to eliminate disease, concentrate on health. And again, he is talking about real true concentration involves no mental effort. It involves being in the thing spiritually. Courage, feeling yourself as courageous. Abundant, feeling yourself as abundance. Healthy, feeling yourself as health. Right? Because you have to, again, enter into its spirit. Not just thinking upon it, but living it, feeling it. Always concentrate on the ideal as an already existing fact. Again, right here, as an already existing fact, as something that already exists. This is the germ cell. Because when you do this, you are planting the seed for its manifestation to follow. Even if your external world is not yet reflecting this ideal of which you are harboring, right? You start first by planting the seed within your mind. And as you continue to concentrate upon that seed, it'll begin to grow and become a behavior pattern. It becomes a thought pattern. And that in turn will become your action, your character. And your character will lead into the manifestation of the thought, of the idea. The life principle which goes forth and sets in motion those causes which guide, direct, and bring about the necessary relation, which eventually manifest in form. Now that is the end of part 17. We're going to end with a quote by Emerson. And I quote, "Thought is the property of those only who can entertain it." End quote. So Emerson himself, as Mr. Hanel was talking about before, raising our mental vibrations, we have to have the spiritual insight necessary to really grasp the true nature and power of our thought, and where it lies on the spiritual plane, and how it stems from the spiritual internal portion of who and what we are. Remember, the body is part of the physical manifestation, so is the brain. But and we know the brain picks up on sound vibrations and sends those electrical signals upon the mind, upon the consciousness. We know that this is so, right? We know that in order for us to hear what it is that we're thinking physically, we have to physically speak. We have to create the sound, which our ears pick up on, transfers through our brain through electrical signals onto the forefront, on the projection of consciousness. We know that this is so, but we know that we can hear our thinking. We are aware of our thoughts without saying a word, right? We think without saying anything. And that shows, that will give you an idea of the separation, the segregation between your inner world and the external world, the outer world. It'll give you a clue on your spiritual, internal, conscious, aware self of you as compared to this body, this image, this man of which you live. Because remember, you're not this. You're attached to this. You are something more. And as Emerson said, only those that can understand this division, this power of which they are, only to those can the real power of thought be given to manifest the things in their life. Because obviously, those who are not, those who are not spiritually awakened to this information, is going to sound foolish to them. And that's okay. Eventually, when I am at a point in my life to where I have the fruit on the tree, and I am doing things much further beyond than what I'm currently doing now, people will listen more, because then I will be able to point towards this direction. You want to know how I was able to build all this? Master key system, the power of Christ, the kingdom of heaven within, the unity with God the Father. I simply vibrated this into my life. Right, that's the point we need to be. Until we get there, we have to continue growing towards that direction. So that being said, that is the end of part 17. Again, for our exercise, we're concentrating mainly on concentration. We're concentrating mainly on entering into the spirit of our visions, our imagination, our ideal, the idea of which we have. We're concentrating in living it mentally, spiritually, emotionally. So that being said, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, whatever you want to do. You do whatever you want to do. It is 12:24 Thursday now. So it's time for me to go. I gotta shower, I gotta eat, and get ready for tomorrow. All right, I'll see you next Wednesday.